Hi, welcome to the Better Life Blueprint. And as is our tradition, we are starting with a lot of smiles. And today I have with me Vinita Pandey, the founder of Flow, the English Academy. Vinita has been an RJ, she has been a founder, and she also runs a book cafe, Talk the Talk, and a communication portal. In her own words, she loves turning ideas into organizations, and she has this very unique concept of language leadership that we are going to get into today. This is one of the episodes that is probably closest to my heart because this is going to focus, some bits of it is going to focus on books and reading and how it makes you a better communicator. We're also going to figure out why public speaking makes people nervous and see what Vinita can share with us to tackle that. Hi and welcome, Vinita. How are you?
Thank you, Anandika. I'm doing very well. Been a little under the weather, but yes, I'm raring to go right now.
The changing weather is getting to all of us.
Yes.
Tell me, Vinita, what does FLOW stand for? What is FLOW?
So, FLOW, Anandika, is an acronym that stands for the love of English. For the love of English.
Lovely. That's what we are here for the love of English language. And we are going to talk about some very interesting roots also. So, a lot into this episode coming up. Let's begin with your journey, Vinita. How have you done so many things from RJing, from being a teacher, and now to being a founder? Um, where did you start from? How did you uh, come to start and found Flow?
Right. Anandika, so every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah. So, let me start at the very beginning. Anandika, I am a true blue army brat, born and bred in the army of the 80s and 90s.
Mm,
And I think I had quite an enviable childhood. We had open air theaters where I remember watching films. It used to be pouring cats and dogs. We had an umbrella at times, and at times we did, but did it even matter? Absolutely not. And we had swimming pools, and we would go there and swim every other morning. There were lots and lots of libraries. I remember attending Christmas parties and
mm,
Diwali nights. I just so much, that one. It was the dream childhood, Anandika. And because dad was in the army, every 2, 3 years we were posted
lovely.
to quaint towns and big cities. And so I grew up
Mm,
all around India, right from Kashmir to Uti to Jhansi to Ahmedabad. I've kind of been almost everywhere in the country. So, and one
mm,
very
mm,
interesting thing, Anandika, was that besides having access to all of this, um, very early on, I learned to embrace the spotlight
mm.
because there were ample opportunities. So also because I used to sing, so there were
Right.
lots of opportunities to be up there on the stage, make mistakes, fall flat on your
Mm,
face, and all that happened. And there was so much learning that happened, right? But I think very early on, Anandika, I
mm,
learned to revel in the arc lines. I realized how powerful it is to be under the spotlight, to be able to command an audience, to
mm,
be able to feed off the energy of the audience. And there's just
mm.
a lot that I learned because of my upbringing in the army. So then it was in Ahmedabad that I started off my teaching journey.
Okay.
And then I went on to teach in schools, prestigious schools across India, got married, came to Delhi, became a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm,
this was the time, Anandika, I pursued my other passions. So on a whim, I saw that there was an opening for an RJ at the All India Radio, Akashvani. So
yeah.
on a whim, I decided to go and try my luck. I went there and I got it, and that was a beautiful journey. I was an RJ and an announcer with the All India Radio Western Music section, and those were the
Mm,
times when
mm,
there were barely
mm.
any radio channels. So that was an exhilarating ride. I remember graveyard shifts. That used to be
Hmm. Hmm.
12, 1, 2 in the night. Then, of course,
Hmm.
the early morning shifts. So that went on. And then
Hmm.
I also, at that time, I've been a singer. I love music. And I
Hmm.
took that opportunity to get some training. So, because even though I used to sing, growing up, I sang a lot in
Okay.
New Year parties. And I remember singing with one of the best bands in Ahmedabad. But I'd never really been formally trained. So I took that opportunity to kind of
Okay.
get a
Hmm.
diploma in Hindustani classical music from Gandhar Mahavidyalaya. So, and then I took a sabbatical for
Okay.
7 years, had my kids, raised them, and then got back to teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anandika, in the summer of, I think, 2015, that's when
Hmm.
I felt this disenchantment, you know, those existential questions that hit
Okay.
you. It's like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Where am I going? What do I want my legacy to be?
Where is this
Where is
headed?
this headed? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I knew deep within me that I wanted to do more and be more. And so, Anandika, what
Hmm.
had happened
Hmm.
before
Hmm.
this, I kind of think of it as chapter one of my life because there's a lot of learning, a lot of exposure,
Okay.
a lot of absorbing, a lot of creative pursuits. And then from here on started chapter two of my life
Hmm.
because I put assimilated all those
Okay.
learnings into chapter two, which was
Hmm.
creating and birthing my passion projects. So I started Flow, which stands for the love of English. I love
Hmm.
the English language, and it started as a germ of an idea in my
Hmm.
head, but then it got itself planted and it refused to budge. And the voice in my head started getting louder and louder. And even though I knew this was a revolutionary language program, I decided to take the
Hmm.
plunge, right? So I started Flow with a very clear vision and mission, Anandika. And we are about to complete 10
Okay.
years in September this year. And I'm quite proud of the fact that
That's wonderful. That's
thank you. Thank you. So that our vision and our mission stay strong even today.
that.
So we indulge in everything to do with the language. We kind of blend language and life. So there's poetry, there's debating, there's creative writing, there's vocabulary, there's extempore, and just about everything to do with
Hmm.
the language. But we have a contemporary syllabi. We have a boundless syllabi, Anandika. So because I think language is something that keeps evolving and so must your syllabi. So that was all about Flow. It's still going strong and it fills me up in the best possible way. And then in 2017, when I was looking for a place for Flow, right? So I wanted a
Hmm.
permanent place for Flow. That's when we found this quaint place in the basement, which was quite big. So I was wondering what to do with all that, space. And then I decided to start a book cafe again on a whim. And I love books. I call myself a bibliophagist. So I devour books. I grew up with books all around me. And so I started this book cafe. Again, something quite revolutionary because it was a cultural space where
Okay.
not only did we have books around, it was a library, but also a place where we held many events. So I went on to have and host a lot of book club meets and stand-up comedy and karaoke evenings and so on and so forth. And so many of these artistic people, heard of the place and
Hmm.
came to the space. And in fact, we were ranked as the top 10 the top 10 book cafes in Delhi. We were featured in So Delhi, Hindu,
Wonderful.
LBB. So, but
Sounds
yeah,
sounds sounds very very wonderful. Sounds really
thank you,
really
Anandika.
lovely.
It was. I say it was because sadly the pandemic struck, and
Hmm.
that was where I
Mm-hmm.
had to close down the book cafe. So I had to close it
Yeah.
down. I took that really, really difficult decision of closing it,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to take my academy online. So very, very challenging time, as it was for all of us. So many things
Mm-hmm.
to learn, unlearn, and
Yeah.
quickly adapt to a
Yeah. Yeah.
new
Yeah.
style of learning and teaching. And then around this time, Anandika, I also realized,
That's true. That's
yeah.
true.
So around this time, I also realized that I had more time on my
Hmm.
hands. My kids had kind of grown up; they had flown the coop, and that's the time I spread my wings even further, and I started with Talk the Talk, a communication portal where I undertake, I curate, I
Hmm.
conduct communication programs, workshops for school students, for undergrad students, for the hospitality
Okay.
industry. And I also worked with an edtech firm as a consultant, worked with organizations like Aspire for Her. So it's been a wonderful time of spreading my
Hmm.
wings
Hmm.
further. And yes, Anandika, the journey continues. But I do feel, Anandika, how they say that hindsight is 2020. When I go back and I look back at my journey, connect all the dots. You don't realize where you're
Hmm.
headed, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It
you
always happens. It always
right,
happens in the hindsight that you're able to connect those dots and make
right.
sense of
So
things.
yes, I'm ready for new adventures and escapades. But for
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I
That
love.
every Wonderful, wonderful to know about this, and everything sounds very exciting. I'm sure it must have come with its own trials and tribulations while you were
Absolutely.
on that journey. But yeah, to listen to it from your years in the army as a growing kid, and the kind of exposure that offered you to set the foundation of everything that you're doing right now, everything sounds very very wonderful. So let's start with what I introduced, um uh, and I picked it up from your from the conversations we have had, the language leadership. What does it mean to you, and um, how does it play out in our day to day life? How does it help us become a better communicator? How does it prepare us for the outside world? What is language leadership concept?
So, Anandika, language leadership is all about owning your language, right? So, we don't realize, but the words that we speak
Mm-hmm.
and the tone that we have,
Mm-hmm.
it's extremely important, right? So, every word, every tone that you utter, kind of paves the way
Hmm.
for your career trajectory. So, but before I answer that, kind
Right.
of take you through this, Anandika, I would like to kind of touch upon
Hmm.
something that we spoke about earlier as well, which was about uh, why so many people are terrified of public speaking, right? So, Anandika,
Hmm.
there have been studies and surveys conducted across the world, and
Hmm.
there are startling facts that have come up. And these facts say that 75%
Okay.
of people in the world,
Hmm.
right, 70 or close to 75% in the world, people in the world,
Hmm.
glossophobia. So, glossophobia is a technical term for fear of public speaking or public
The
speaking,
fear of
right?
public speaking.
So,
Okay. Okay.
these are staggering. This is a staggering percentage. So, what does one do? And in fact, there are some people who
Hmm.
say that I'm more terrified of public speaking than I am of, death. So, now, what is the reason? If there's so many people who are terrified of public speaking,
Hmm.
what is the reason, right? So, let's try to unearth the reason so that it gets easier for us to understand. So,
Hmm.
here, Aradhika, I would like to
Hmm.
you know, go back to the prehistoric times when we were cavemen and cavewomen, right? And that's the time, we
Okay.
learned the
Hmm.
basic
Hmm.
instinct of the brain was to protect us because there were lots and lots of dangers. So we have a pair
True.
of almond-shaped,
Right. Right.
almond-shaped structures called the amygdala. It's placed somewhere here, at the base of our
Hmm.
skull, and this is a part of our primitive brain. So even though we are here in the well and truly
Right.
21st
Right.
century, some parts of our brain are very
Hmm.
primitive, and that's amygdala. Now, amygdala is a part of the brain that houses and processes emotions, especially related to fear and anxiety and threat. So what
Hmm.
happens is that the brain cannot
Hmm.
differentiate and distinguish between, a real threat and a perceived threat. So in
Hmm.
those times, in the
Hmm.
primordial times, when you saw
Okay.
strange eyes watching you, it was perceived as threat, which it was. But today, when you are up on the stage and you have
Yeah.
lots and
Absolutely.
lots of people watching you,
Hmm.
the amygdala perceives it as a threat and it gets
Hmm.
triggered. So when it gets triggered,
Okay.
that's when it releases a
Hmm.
lot of stress hormones inside our body, and which is why we feel all these
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
symptoms like clammy hands and pounding
Sweaty
chest,
palms.
yes, sweat, sweat on our brow, and a very unsettling feeling in our stomach. So now what do? The brain, like I told you, the brain's primal instinct is to protect you, and this is a primitive brain. What do? But
Yeah.
this is, it's easy for us to understand that this is a very natural and normal feeling. So even the most seasoned public speakers
Hmm.
feel this every time they are
Hmm.
up on
Hmm.
stage. They do feel that because it's very natural. We know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
If we know that this is something that afflicts almost all of us, it's easy for us to at least accept it, right? Now, how do we address it? How do we manage
Hmm.
this, right? Because we have to be up there on the stage. There are lots and lots of opportunities where we have to speak. So there are a couple of things, tips and tricks
Hmm.
that I want to share with you all today. One would be, of course, some deep breathing. So because as soon as you indulge in deep breathing, it calms you a little. Your anxiety, yeah,
Hmm.
it will
Calm
calm
down.
down, right?
Yeah.
Another would be something that's called a vocal warm up. So a very simple vocal warm up, Anandika, is just these two words that you say one after the other a couple of times.
Hmm.
And as soon as you say it, I'll tell you what happens, but let's try just saying these words, right? So the words are, if you want, you can
Hmm.
say it after me. The words are teacup, hiccup. Just these two words. Teacup, hiccup.
Hmm.
Teacup,
Teacup. Hiccup.
yeah, teacup, hiccup.
Teacup. Hiccup.
Teacup,
Teacup.
hiccup,
Hiccup.
right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Teacup. Hiccup.
yeah. Now what
Teacup.
happens?
Hiccup. Hmm.
Yeah, great. Now, Aradhika, what happened? As soon as you started saying these words, or anybody who's anxious, who's up there on the stage, and you just before you go up on the stage, or just before you take the mic,
Hmm.
you say this right
Hmm.
softly. What happens is that the brain shifts its attention away from your anxiety to getting this right. So that's the first shift that happens. It's not really, even though there are stress hormones that are coursing through your body,
Hmm.
you're not very focused on your anxiety, and you're now focused
Yeah.
on getting
Yeah.
these words right,
Yeah.
right? So the shift happens. Two, when you say these words, when you say teacup, it's the
Hmm.
frontal part
Hmm.
of your mouth that gets exercised and energized, right? And when you
Hmm.
say hiccup, just like a
Right.
hiccup, this
Hmm.
comes from deep within you, from the diaphragm. So that again expands your vocal cords and the airways, and your speech
Hiccup.
comes out
Hiccup.
better. Yeah, hiccup, hiccup, very easy to remember. Right? Another really fun and
Yeah. Yeah.
immediate way to kind of manage your anxiety when you are, speaking publicly is
Hmm.
tongue twisters. Now I know that tongue twisters are thought to be
Yes.
speech indulgent, but that's so not true. Tongue twisters are not just fun
Very.
and engaging, but they do the same thing that vocal warm ups do, like teacup and hiccup. One, they shift your attention away from the anxiety, and two, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
repeated patterns and sounds, you are struggling to get it right. Your brain is trying to process those words one after
Hmm.
the other, right? And again, when you
Hmm.
speak,
Hmm. Hmm.
when
Hmm.
you indulge in a lot of tongue twisters, it also helps you improve your diction, your articulation, your inflection, and so on and so forth,
Yes.
right? So, are we game for a tongue twister?
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do
So,
it.
would you like to try it with me? So, the tongue twister, one that I really love is how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could
Hmm.
chuck wood? How much wood would a woodchuck
How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck
wood? Yes.
chuck
Good,
wood?
good. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? So when you say it, because there's so many different patterns and it really refines and helps you speak better, articulate better.
Hmm.
Sisters really do that.
Hmm.
All
Hmm.
fun and easy things to do. It's not rocket science, right? And in fact, the best orators in the world and public speakers actually use tongue twisters to be able to speak better and to be able to calm their, anxiousness
Yeah.
before they get up on the stage. So yeah, that was all about why.
That's really helpful. I think it really makes a lot of sense to bring in that mind shift when you are facing a stage, when you are going to address a group of people, a bigger, larger audience, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, you were saying something. Sorry, please continue.
No, no, no. So, in fact, what you said about shifting your focus, because our mind is a an obedient servant
Hmm.
to a
Hmm.
terrible master. So it's very easy to fool your mind, even though it's
Absolutely.
under a lot of pressure and anxiety. The primitive brain has kicked in. It's very easy to shift and sway its attention
Hmm.
away from that, and that's what these vocal warm-ups and tongue twisters do, or meditative practices do. So all
Hmm.
you can do with public speaking is learn to manage it. And then, of course, you get better and better at it.
Hmm.
Yes.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So, how does this now tie back to the concept of language leadership that we'd spoken about?
Right. So, Arabica, language leadership is again like I mentioned earlier, owning the language, right? Being able to, so there is
Hmm. Hmm.
a
Hmm.
clinical psychologist called Jordan Peterson. I love what he has to say about speaking and the language.
Okay.
He says that you must learn to,
Mm-hmm.
when you say what you mean and mean what you say. Speak your truth, because in today's world, it's very easy to be
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
swayed with all the information that's around you, and also so many trends that are there. But it's so important to hold your ground and stand your ground and say what you mean what you say, right?
Hmm.
Because when you speak
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
truth, then the world understands and the world connects with you. So that's what this is all about, Anandika.
So this also is the title of our conversation today. That
Your
owning your
space.
space and story. So I think that kind of very very nicely brings home the point that it is important to give your ideas a voice, and you have the freedom to define what that voice is going to be
Absolutely.
with the help of your own language. And then you just need to own it in the sense of owning your own story and being very proud of it.
Right.
Another concept I think that we can bring in here is uh, going back to the Greek basics and uh, understanding from you how using ethos, pathos, and logos, um, how do they help in speaking what we speak, how we speak. And I wonder if a lot of people really understand what does this has to do with anything English. What does Greek has to do anything with English? In fact, we often hear or often say the phrase that this is all Greek to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So, Anandika, just taking off from what you said, I've always wondered why we say this. All this is Greek and Latin to me. So, you'll be amazed to know that 30 to 40% of words in the English language come from Greek and Latin, right? And a lot from Greek. So, I
Hmm.
have no idea why this phrase was developed, because we owe a lot to the Greeks, not just in terms of philosophy, but also in terms of language and rhetoric. So,
Yes,
answering your question, Anandika, let's go
that's
back to
true.
ancient Greece and talk about the three ancient pivotal Greek philosophers:
Hmm.
Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. I've even coined an acronym for them.
Hmm.
I love coining acronyms, right? SPA. That's easy for you to remember who came first. So SPA, the S stands for Socrates, P stands for Plato,
Hmm.
and the A stands for Aristotle. So Socrates was the original founding father of Western
Hmm.
philosophy. All of philosophy is based on what he wrote. And studied and discussed about. Then came Plato, who also founded a school. And then
Hmm.
Aristotle was tutored by Plato. Aristotle
Gave us
was
the
also,
Republic.
yeah, Aristotle was also the tutor of
Yes.
Alexander the Great, the greatest emperor we've ever known, right? Now, this is what
Yes.
almost 3,000 years ago, Aradhika. Aristotle wrote down a book called the Rhetoric, where he talks about these three tools of persuasion,
Hmm.
which you were talking about: ethos, pathos, and logos. So
Logos.
let's try to understand what they mean. He says that ethos. So because whenever we speak, whether we are up there on a public platform or
Hmm.
we are talking to somebody, our aim is to try to persuade them. Our aim is to try to convince them according to what we think. Right? So, how do you
Hmm.
persuade people? How do you convince them? The first rule
Hmm.
says that ethos, because what is ethos? Ethos builds
Hmm.
up trustworthiness, it builds up credibility. Ethos is credibility, trustworthiness, it is authority. Because why would anybody want to
Hmm.
listen to you if you don't have expertise, or you don't have the skill set, or you don't have the authority,
Right.
or you don't have the credentials in that particular area?
Hmm.
So, for example, when you walk into a doctor's office, all those frames that you see on the wall,
Hmm.
which tells you all about the credentials of that doctor, or the certifications that he or she's had, or the celebrities that he's treated, or celebrities who vouch for him or her. That's ethos in action. Even before you meet the doctor, you already convinced that he or
Hmm. Hmm.
she
Hmm.
is the right doctor for you because you've seen all those frames which vouch for this doctor's credibility and trustworthiness.
Right.
Ethos,
Right.
right? Pathos. Now, what's pathos? Pathos in Greek means suffering. So,
Hmm.
pathos is deals with emotions, because we are, after all,
Hmm.
even if we know that somebody is credible and has all the right credentials, we are
Hmm.
creatures of emotions and feelings, Anandika. We humans are
Hmm.
creatures of feelings and emotions. So that's what pathos does. When you use pathos in any conversation or in a public platform, you're not
Hmm.
trying to persuade people
Hmm.
using emotions,
Hmm.
because we are very easily swayed by emotions,
You're
right? So whether it is
So pathos is all about
to
appealing to the common emotions.
absolutely. So those emotions could be anything. It could be joy, it could be fear, it
Hmm.
could be urgency, it could be vulnerability, it could even be humor, right? Which is why you have stand-up comedians ruling the roost. They appeal to your humorous side, right?
Yes.
Pathos works very well. In fact, it's one of the most powerful tools of persuasion, because it appeals to your feeling. When you connect with people, then it's very easy
Hmm.
to sway.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's understand logos now. So, ethos and pathos are all about credibility and
Okay.
emotions. Now, interestingly, Anandika, all these three tools of persuasion, I know you told me how do we use it or where do we use it. We are using it everywhere.
Hmm.
We use it in our everyday
Right.
conversations without even realizing it. So, for example, if you want to
Yeah.
convince your husband to take you to for that Goa vacation, and you want him to splurge on that, you can get out your
Hmm.
pathos side, right? Channelize your inner pathos and tell him,
Hmm.
"Oh my God, I've been working non-stop on this better life blueprint for so long, and so many other things that I'm doing. I need a break." That's
Hmm.
pathos,
Hmm.
right? So we are using it everywhere. It's used so heavily in advertising. It's used everywhere, and it's relevant even today, almost 3,000 years later. And
Hmm.
a place where you love watching ethos, pathos, and logos in play is the courtroom. All those courtroom battles. So I love
Yeah.
courtroom battles, right? So ethos and
Hmm.
pathos are, of course, in play. And there's a very famous quote that says that ethos and pathos may sway the jury, but
Hmm.
it's logos that wins you the cases. Now, how's that?
Hmm.
Because, Aradhika, I told you that we are creatures of feelings and emotion, but we
True.
humans are also creatures of logic, reason.
Logic.
Yeah, that also appeals to us, right? So we may be swayed, but we
Hmm.
want hardcore evidence. We
Yeah.
want facts and figures and statistics and data, and
That's true.
that's what really helps in compelling your audience to be able to act on what you're saying. So
Hmm.
just kind of summarizing it,
Hmm.
ethos helps you build trust,
Credibility and trust.
credibility,
Right.
and pathos helps you feel and it helps you connect further.
Connect with the emotions.
And
Hmm.
logos, is a means for you to act on that feeling. So if you want people to act on what
Right.
them to
Right.
act on, that this is what you need. Ethos, pathos,
Hmm.
and logos. Very, very powerful. I've seen children using it. I've seen adults using it. You can use it for your boss to be able to convince him that you need that promotion. It never fails.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm. Hmm.
was
I'm sure. I'm sure without even realizing, uh, and without even realizing and not knowing the actual roots, we use them. Use these three concepts in all communication across the board,
right.
whether it is private communication within our families, within our friendships, or professional communications.
Right.
Very interesting to know this. I As we come closer to the end of this episode, I can't let you go without talking anything about books. So tell me, how do books help you become a better communicator, a better speaker, in your opinion, Vinita?
Anandika, there's so much that we already know about how books help us, right? And I told you I'm a
Very true.
bibliophagist. I grew up with books. I went on to even work on a book cafe, and even now I have close to 3,000 books at home. At any given point of time, I'm reading so many books. Now, before I tell you the importance of books, I want to take you to
Hmm.
some of the things that I observed when I had the book cafe. When I saw lots and lots of readers who
Okay.
came
Sure.
into the book cafe, and what I observed was that
Hmm.
how reading is a great leveler. So whether it's a kid, a 5-year-old kid who came bounding into
Hmm.
the cafe and picked up a book that they like, or an author that they would love to explore,
Hmm.
they would take that book and sit and
Hmm.
curl up and read, right, for hours or minutes or whatever it is. And on the other hand, you had college students, you had school students, you had people our age, and then of course the
Hmm.
people who are older, the elderly people who also came in droves to this cafe. So I
Hmm.
distinctly remember this
Hmm.
elderly uncle who would there religiously at
Hmm. Hmm.
least twice or thrice a week at around the same time, which was around 11 in the morning.
Okay.
And that is the time we opened the doors to our cafe as well. And he would come, pick up a book that he had been reading,
Hmm.
prior, pick that up, read the subtitle, order that
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
religious cup of cappuccino. And then, of course, we got talking,
Hmm.
and he told me that, Vinita, I don't have too many people my age who read, and I have loved reading, right? So I really love this space that you've kind of opened up here. Uh, because I get
Okay.
to, this is a way for me to come out of my house and look forward to this time that I sit and read here. And then also, of course, gradually he went on to meet other people and, people his
Hmm.
type, people his tribe. And then we also had book club meets. He would be a very active part of this. So I just think there's so much that reading can do, Anandika. And for people who are still on the fence where reading is concerned, who are getting into reading or are not
Hmm.
reading as much, I have to tell them that
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what you read. I know there's a lot that's said about books nowadays, which is read these 10 books. These are the must read books. I think don't bother about that, at
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
initially. Read whatever catches your fancy. So if you are the kind who loves whodunits, go ahead, sink your teeth into that. If you are somebody who loves memoirs and autobiographies, read that genre. If sci-fi is what you love,
I second that. I second that completely.
right. So I have an early morning ritual where I start my day with a cup of adrak ki chai and my morning newspaper. And yes, the physical newspaper. I love the feel of that, and it just gives me a grounding and a stillness that I need in the morning, right? So anything that you want to read, but
Hmm.
do read. The thing is, you must read. Now, coming to what you were saying, the benefits of reading. We all know the benefits of reading, Anandika. It helps you, uh, you know, say your story in a richer language. It gives you those metaphors and analogies that you can pepper your conversations with. Um, but I think let's
Absolutely.
look at reading through a lens of public speaking, right? To be able to speak, you must be able
Hmm.
to think,
Hmm.
right? You can't speak unless
Hmm.
you don't have those thoughts in your mind. And
Right.
that's where reading comes into play. Imagine it,
Agree.
imagine reading as a gateway to organize
Okay.
thoughts. So it begins with reading. So when you read, you're planting new
Hmm.
ideas into your head. You're planting new perspectives and opinions and thoughts in your head. And when you read and
Hmm.
explore a lot of different genres or authors, you are gaining insights and perspectives into cultures and people that you would never otherwise gain, you know. So that is one thing. And then when you read, the next gateway or the
Hmm. Hmm.
next funnel stop would be writing, because once you read you have a lot of ideas in your mind, right? But writing helps you put those muddled thoughts into order, into clarity.
Streamline them.
And then the third step
Hmm.
is,
Hmm.
yes, streamline. Absolutely. Filter out what's not. Like, we spoke about language leadership, which means what's not your
Hmm.
truth. What is it, something you don't believe in, right? You don't have to go with the
Hmm.
bandwagon and
Hmm. Hmm.
say what others are saying just because it's popular.
Hmm.
And then we come to speaking, Anandika. That's how reading
Hmm.
and speaking are so bound, right? So, because once you read, when you write, when you
Hmm.
speak,
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
ultimately speak, then you speak with clarity, with preciseness, and with poise. So, that's the power of reading.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely concur with you, Vinita. I do a writing mentorship, and uh, I I think say this repeatedly in all my classes that any language, be it English, Hindi, Greek, for that matter, but learn that language in isolation in terms of an activity. If you're learning to write better, you can't just write. You have to read it also. You have to speak it also. So that is how you completely absorb, and that is how that language flows into your work beautifully.
right.
Hello,
Absolutely, Anandika.
am I audible?
Yes, you are. I can hear you, Anandika.
All right. Okay. I thought I'd lost you for a moment there. But good to know that we're back. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Reading is the basic foundation for writing better, for speaking better, for anything better as far as language, using a language to your using the language to speak your truth is concerned. Thank you,
Right.
Vinita. This has been a wonderful conversation, and you've shared so many tips and tricks with us, which I'm sure everybody is going to have fun using them. I am Anandika Sood, and thank you to everybody who joined us for this wonderful conversation. I will see a lot more of you in the next episode.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much,
Bye bye. Good
Anandika. Thank you for
night.
having me. Thank you. Good night.
You're most welcome. It was a delight.
Yeah. So was it for me. Thank you.